Welcome, and our bracha, Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu, Melech HaOlam, Asher Kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And
So is it,
yes,
which Parsha is it?
it's Naso. Next Shabbat will be Naso. And by the way, I believe Naso is the longest Parsha in the Torah. And if you count up the number of verses in the entire Parshat Naso, it is exactly the same number as the largest tractate in the Babylonian Talmud. The number of pages, something like 175 or something like that. I believe it's Baba Batra, is the longest tractate in the Babylonian Talmud. And in terms of the number of pages it has, it matches exactly the number of verses in Parshat Naso. Just an interesting coincidence. So what happens is this. We are actually continuing. As you can see, we're in the middle of a chapter. I'm going to ask people to, I'm going to be muting some people. Let me see who. Okay, there we go. Only because of the associated sounds going on. All right. We are actually continuing. You see, we're on verse 21, and we actually started this earlier as we finished up Parshat Bamidbar. So remember, we had counted the Israelites. We discussed their place in the encampment. This is all last week, that 3 tribes were on the north, 3 tribes on the, on each cardinal point, 3 tribes. And the tribe of Levi was not included. And that is because the tribe of Levi, of course, had a special responsibility. They actually took the place, and this is mentioned in last week's Torah portion, that the tribe of Levi and their responsibilities, again, plan B. Plan A would have been to have every firstborn male of every tribe come together to form this particular group to be of specific ministering to God, as the Levites did. But because of the Levites' loyalty to God, when the Israelites committed the sin of the golden calf at the foot of Mount Sinai, they were the only tribe that did not participate. As a result, God took away that privilege from the firstborn and gave it to the tribe of Levi. This is stated explicitly in the Torah. So the fact that the tribe of Levi got to do what it got, with both the responsibilities and the privileges, had to do with their loyalty to God. They demonstrated loyalty. And this, by the way, is a general principle that we see in the book of Genesis, and I think is an underlying principle. That
I have a question.
Let me just finish the point, and then
Okay.
please hold your question a second.
Okay.
That what really counts as nobility has to do with character and not birth. Right? That normally we see in general that birth and yichus is what gives a person their standing. In the Torah, it has all to do with character, your character. Okay, go ahead, Lauren.
It's just kind of a classification question. Levi is a tribe,
Yes.
and it's also, there's Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael, but Yisrael is not a tribe, and Kohen is not a tribe.
Yes.
And Levi is a tribe.
Levi is a tribe. However, okay, so remember, all Kohanim are also by definition Leviim. Kohanim, because they are all descendants of Aaron, the high priest. Any Kohen has to claim descendancy from along the male line from Aaron, the high priest. So they are a subset of Leviim. And when we speak about Yisrael, we're talking again about the aggregate of all the other tribes, the other 11 tribes, which includes Joseph. And because Joseph split into Ephraim and Manasseh, we still have 12 tribes.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
All right. And then just to go on a little bit about summarizing last week's Sedra, the tribe of Levi consisted of 3 families. So Levi himself, the patriarch, Levi, had 3 sons: Gershon, firstborn, Kahat, and Merari, those three families. And so the way it was distributed around the tabernacle, so if you can think of concentric squares, right, at the entrance of the tabernacle were Moses and Aaron and their families, and then around the tabernacle on the other three sides were each one of Gershon, Kahat, and Merari, surrounding the tabernacle immediately. And then outside of that would have been the 12 tribes that of Israel. So this is all mentioned in last week's Sedra, how this all gets set up. And in this, and then as we ended Parshat Bamidbar, we discussed the specific tasks of carrying the parts of the tabernacle that lay at the responsibility of the tribe of Kahat, the Kohathites. By the way, Amram, Moses' father, and Aaron's father, and Miriam's father, came from the family of Kahat, of that. So for whatever the reasons, even though he was second born, and perhaps because he was second born, but it's possible that there was something that that Kahat had done, or his descendants, in terms of their loyalty, in terms of their service, that they get, in some senses, a greater level of responsibility as far as carrying the parts of the tabernacle. And what we are going to do now is continue. So last week we finished by discussing how the family of Kahat were to transport the very sacred vessels, the ark, of the covenant, the menorah, the table for showbread, and the altar for incense. And possibly, I'm sorry, this is my memory. This is, I can look back because it's right up here to see what they had to transport. Let me see. Klei HaKodesh. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Sorry, back up here just to find the specific things. Okay. I think also, right, the Mizbeach. They had to carry the altar as well. So they had to cleanse the altar from ashes and then cover it up, etc. So those things were for the tribe of, that is the family of Kahat, to carry. And because they were responsible for the most sacred vessels in the tabernacle, they had to wait for the priests to go in and cover them up with cloths. This is a question, remember, that Harlan asked me last week, so that they did not actually set eyes on these Levites were not going to set eyes on these particular vessels, even though they carried them, they transported them. So, and this is mentioned right over here.
Right, it's right at the very end, right before Naso starts.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So I think that is intentional. In other words, it's a way of distinguishing the tribe of the family, excuse me, of Kahat from the other Levitical families. So here we go. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. So Hashem spoke to Moses, saying, Naso, and that means, it means lift up. But in this sense, it means, take into account or delineate or pay special attention to. That I think is actually the connotation of this word naso, which is to pay attention, to single out, et rosh b'nei Gershom, the head, well, literally of the children of Gershom, Gamhem, they too. So this is when it says et rosh, it's got the same idea as gulgolet, I believe, so it means several things. Naseh et rosh has to do, this is an expression that is used by Joseph to the butler and to the wine and to the chief baker back in Egypt. And the idea, as I said, is to pay special attention, but it has the connotation that when you pay special attention to someone, it may be for good. In other words, to single them out for some special honor, or God forbid, to single them out for punishment. And it's so interesting because it means lift up the head, lift up the head. And in the case of course, Joseph interpreting those dreams, he uses the same expression because Pharaoh is going to single out the wine steward to return him to his post and single out the baker for punishment, for hanging. So here, of course, it is to distinguish them and to give them honor. So that's all to do with this Naso et Rosh, B'nai Gershon. So it's more of an idiom. It's hard to translate this literally word for word. Levet avotam.
But it does say here to take a census, so I guess that's.
Yeah, to count.
Yeah.
But again, the word to count is in English even an interesting word, right? It means to number, but it also means to, when somebody counts, it means they are distinguished in some kind of way. So there is some parallel there. Thank you, Lauren. Levet avotam, remember, according to the patriarchal line, the mishpachotam, according to their families. Let's take a look at Rashi. Naso et Rosh B'nai Gershom Gamhem. They too, just like you did with the family of Kahat, you should do with the family of Gershom, the children of Gershom. Kamoshet siviticha al B'nai Kahat, just as I commanded you regarding the children of Kahat, lirot, to see. I wrote that up there because this vav is clearly it's not printed well. Lirot kama yesh, to see kama yesh, how many there were shehigiu lichlal avodah, that had arrived to be counted for service. They now had arrived, they had reached the age where they now had to perform services. And the service specifically, in this case, is going to be transporting the tabernacle, which, as we know, was designed in such a way that it could be set up and then dismantled. And here we go. So, mi ben shloshim shana v'mala, from 30 years old and up. So they entered service at the age of 30. I will tell you that elsewhere it mentions 25. And the reason, so this apparent contradiction is resolved by understanding that the first 5 years, they basically were learning how to do what they needed to do. So that's why it's at 25 that they first start to learn
The apprentice stage.
Thank you. Yes, exactly. It's an apprenticeship of 5 years. Ad ben chamishim shana, until the age of 50. So from 30 to 50, tifkodotam, you shall count them. Kol haba litzavo tzava, all who enter into service, to serve, right? La'avod, to work, avodah, to perform the work, be'ohel moed, in the tent of meeting. Zot avodat mishpachot hagershoni, and this is the service of the tribe, the work of the tribe, the tasks of the family of the Gershonites. La'avod, to serve, ulamasa, and to carry. Look, the word naso, right? It's all part. This is again part of that root. V'nasu et yeriot hamashkan. They will carry the curtains of the tabernacle. So you remember, and Rashi's going to explain how this is interpreted, that the tabernacle had boards, and then over those boards, they were spread cloths, curtains over those boards. And remember how they were like, according to, I think, most interpretations, there were 3 layers. The inner layer had these cloths that were made out of blue, purple, and crimson yarns. And remember, there were 10 of these cloths that were tied together, 5 and 5. And then there were loops made, if you recollect. I believe we may have discussed this. And then over that were curtains made of goat hair. And there were 11 of those. And so they were slightly bigger than the ones that were underneath. And then over that were tanned ram skins and tachash skins
Maybe dolphin
Yes,
skins.
dolphin skin. There we go. All right. Yes.
The,
And
the,
so,
the,
yeah, go ahead.
the desert dolphins.
That's well, or they brought them with them from Egypt.
Sure they did.
Brought them with them. So here we go. V'nasu et yeriot hamishkon.
Land sharks,
Say that again.
land sharks,
Land.
land sharks. You've got to remember,
It's an SNL joke
it's an SNL joke. Land sharks.
I'm
Yep.
sorry.
from the
Okay,
Really
70s.
yeah.
old
From the
SNL
70s.
joke.
I had barely arrived in the States in the 70s, like sometime in 1970, I guess. At any rate, there also, by the way, is there's some interpretation that I think calls it a unicorn as well, by the way. It's a word that's isn't found too many other places, so it's difficult to translate. At any rate, this is, they shall carry it yeriot hamishkan, the curtains of the Mishkan, the et, and what else? The et ohel moed, and the tent of meeting, michsehu, its covering, umichse hatachash, and the covering of, there's the word, of the tachash, asher alav milmala, which is upon it above. By the way, Onkelos translates tachash as sasgavna, and the Talmud discusses this word as being made up of two words: sas, lasus, sisu v'simchu, in other words, to rejoice, and gavna are colors. And so apparently this was an iridescent, something iridescent, because it says it was so happy about its skin. That's so something that had an iridescent skin.
Rainbow fish.
Yes, maybe. Okay. Ve'et masach petach ohel moed, and the curtain at the entrance of the tent of meeting. I'll keep going and we'll check, and there is actually Rashi on this, just to give you the listing of all the things they had to transport. The et kal'e hechatzer, remember around the courtyard of the tabernacle there were hangings, the hangings of the courtyard, the et masach petach shar hachatzer. So this first masach, this curtain, was at the very entrance of the tent of meeting, of the tented part of the tabernacle. And this curtain was at the entrance of the gate of the courtyard. Asher al hamishkan, which is before the mishkan, the al hamizbeach saviv, and around, and the altar around. In other words, the curtains that surrounded all of these things. The et metrehem, their cords, because they had to use cords to hold up the poles that suspended the curtains. The et kol kle avodatam, and all the utensils that had to do with their service. The et kol asher ye'aseh lahem, and all that is made for them. And the them, right? What is referred to by them? The Targum understands them is referring to the tribe of the Gershonites, and I wondered to myself if it refers to the vessels and the utensils that there were. And in fact, Sepharia, the translator of Sepharia, seems to suggest that that's what the Lahem is referring to. Va'avadu, and they shall serve, they shall work. So let's go back to Rashi. And Kafhe, et yiriot hamashkan, the tent, the curtains of the Mishkan. He says, Eser hatachtonot. We're talking about the 10 lower curtains that were directly above the Mishkan. The et ohel moed, and the tent of meeting. He says, yeriot izim, that is to say, the curtains made out of goat hair, ha'asuyot la'ahel alav, which were made to cover over those 10 lower curtains. Michsehu, its covering. And he says, oret elim mo'odamim, that is referring to the tanned red ram skins. They were tanned. Modamim would come from Adom, meaning red, right? The red tanned ram skins. Sounds almost impossible to say. A tongue twister. Masach petach, I think this is in here. It's a misprint here. Vilon hamizrachi. So this curtain, the curtain of the entrance to the tent of meeting, vilon hamizrachi, another word for curtain, vilon hamizrachi, that was on the eastern side of the tabernacle. That's where you entered into the tented part, the covered part of the tabernacle. Asher al hamishkan, which is over the mishkan. Klomar, that is to say, ha-klaim v'hamasach, that is to say, the hangings, v'hamasach, and the screen, shel chatzer, about of the courtyard, hasochachim umaginim al hamishkan, which surround, right, or protect, cover and protect. So it could be sochachim refers to the original curtains that we were talking about, the coverings of the tabernacle, and protect al hamishkan regarding the mishkan, the al mizbeach hanachoshet, and also the bronze altar saviv all round about. So you remember from the pictures that I showed you before when we were studying Exodus, how they had this courtyard that was set up and demarcated by these curtains. Yeah.
And here it just says, it says copper.
Yes, we don't really know how to translate the word nechoshet.
But they were making bronze back then.
That's why I think some people prefer to translate it as bronze.
Okay.
It's just a metal, right? Some kind of metal. The et kol asher yaseh lahem, that is ketargumo. So Rashi supports the Targum's translation. That is, so the et kol asher, and all which is made for them. All that is made for them. So he gives you the Targum. V'yat kol deyit masar lahon levnei Gershon. And all that is given to them or directed to them or they're responsible for them, to the children, to the children of Gershon. And this is where we're going to stop today. I'm going to put in the marking and we'll continue actually. Let's see, find the little spot I want to. Have to find my little arrow. Okay, there we are for tomorrow. Very good. I will stop the share. And again, why all this detail? My sense is, of course, that part of it is to create a reality for us, to describe a reality for us. And there's something significant, I think, about the fact that this holy place is transported from one place to another. There may be echoes that are relevant because we are exiled. We've been such a long time exiled community, and to sense that, this very, very close divine presence is possible in all such circumstances. So I think this is actually an amazing area to meditate on and to think about what is the significance. Why is the Torah sharing these things? I think there are quite a number of lessons that one can derive from this. I think there's definitely a division of labor. The Torah is quite serious about people having specific responsibilities, and that if that's their responsibility, it's not for other people to take over, that there be respect for boundaries, especially when it comes to people's responsibilities. So there is this whole issue of boundaries, which is, of course, set up in the very first chapter of Genesis, where it talks about day and night. There's already the first boundary, and creation is essentially an act of of setting up boundaries so that you can make sense of things. It isn't just tohu vavohu. So those are just some basic things. Golda, do you have a point?
I thought I did and I lost it.
Okay.
I was thinking of something else and then it's totally gone.
All right. So if no one else has anything to say right now, I am going to end the lesson. So I'll stop.